Hello guys, another video for you. Said in a previous video I was going to talk about a couple of things. There's a lot of people, and these videos again are for people that are trying to learn to shoot longbows and recurves. Some people call it traditional archery. There's a bunch of different names out there for it or whatever, stick bow, whatever you want to call it. I just call it a longbow because that's what it is. It's an American semi-longbow. That's kind of the type of longbows I like to shoot, and I've been shooting them for a long time. So, want to talk about is your bow forgiving? Is it stable? And is it smooth? I'm going to talk about each one of those a little bit, just to try to help people understand when somebody's standing there in a crowd and they're kind of getting into shooting longbows and recurves and things like that, and they hear these other guys talking about a particular bow, and they might say, well, that's a very smooth bow, or that's a very stable bow, or that's a very forgiving bow. The first one I want to address is forgiving. When somebody says that a bow is forgiving, okay, there's very much there's a couple of generations that are either getting into archery or want to get into archery or whatever, that are very accustomed to what I like to call the plug and play kind of mentality. There are some people out there that feel like that they can go down to the big department stores or big sporting goods stores or whatever and buy a bow off the shelf and buy some arrows and some broadheads and go hunting. I don't recommend that. I just don't. There's some people that think, well, man, I want to get a bow, and they get online and they buy one, or they find one from a particular bowyer that they heard their name go around, stuff like that. They buy the bow, and then they go buy some wood arrows from one of the big archery stores, and cannot understand why this bow's not shooting the way it should. So, the word forgiving is a little bit subjective, to put it mildly. Forgiving is, the bow will be forgiving to you if you have the proper bow. Me myself, I like a 68-inch bow. I have shot some 66-inch bows, and even shorter than that. I've had the reflex deflex bows down to 62-inch bows. But an ASL bow or a hill style bow or whatever, 68-inch fits me pretty good. I read it somewhere. I don't remember where I read it at, but if you are a Howard Hill follower or fan or whatever, I believe that someone quoted Howard Hill or may have quoted him and said that your bow length for a hill style bow is 40 inches plus your draw length. So if you have a 28-inch draw length, you need a 68-inch bow. That's kind of the gist of it. I will tell you that there's a very big misconception that a 68-inch bow is too long to hunt with, or is too long to hunt with out of a blind or out of a tree or whatever. I do it all the time. I hunt out of tripods, out of tree stands, out of blinds, out of brush blinds, all kinds of things. And I will tell you that once you get used to shooting this bow, they become more and more handy in the woods than you could possibly ever imagine. They do work in the woods. Trust me on that one. But back to the forgiving part. This is a 68-inch bow. Okay. Is this bow forgiving? Yes. And I'll tell you kind of what my version of why it's forgiving. The bow is 68 inches long, okay? So that you're basically, what happens is every longbow has a center point in this handle somewhere. It's not where the arrow shelf is. It's somewhere in this handle. Okay. One of the biggest problems that some people have when they first get started shooting one of these type bows is their hand placement, where the pressure of the handle is in their hand. Okay. Now this bow looks like I'm gripping it, pretty tightly. I'm not. But one thing that you need to keep in mind is that, and you're only going to be able to find this by shooting your bow. Okay. This is the only way you're going to be able to find it. There is a sweet spot in this hand. It's not going to be way down here. It's going to be somewhere in this area right here. Somewhere in the top, 2/3 of the handle, right in here somewhere is the exact center of that bow. So when you place that bow in your hand, and it's in that lifeline, or that approximately that area, and you close your hand around the bow, okay, that's where approximately where you need to have that bow in your hand. Now, when you go to draw the bow, the pressure that you're putting on this hand, whether you're putting a lot of pressure in your index finger or your pinky finger, where your pinky finger would be at, if you're moving that pressure, you can take this bow and do this with it. Okay? The idea with this particular type handle and with this hill style bow is to find that sweet spot, and you'll be able to feel the pressure in this part of your hand right here, where it's concentrated at. Okay? And you may have to move that up and down just a little bit until you find that exact spot at full draw where it shoots the best. And the only way that you're going to find this spot is to practice with it. I don't mean go out there and shoot one arrow with your hand all the way up at the top of the grip like this and say, whoop, that won't work. And then you go to the other extreme and you got your hand way down here and you shoot. That's the other far extreme. You may have missed the spot. So what you want to do is get it where it's comfortable in your hand. Okay. Again, you're looking for something about like that. Okay. And then when you close your hand around it, all right, you're not gripping the bow like trying to squeeze the oil out of the leather, but you do have a firm enough grip on it where it's not going to fall out of your hand. And when you're at full draw, you will feel right in that crease where that pressure is concentrated at. Okay? If you try to shoot this bow like a recurve type riser where you've only got weight in between your thumb and your forefinger, if you try to shoot this bow like this, it's not going to be a pleasant experience. It's going to kick and it's going to be recoil. A lot of people like to call it hand shock. Okay? Yes, of course it's going to hand shock because that's not the way the bow is intended to be shot. All the bows that I have, and I have quite a few of them, there is no hand shock. Hand shock is a result of a poor grip and or the wrong arrows. Okay? That's what that's a result of right there. There's nothing wrong with the bow. Now, as far as forgiving, once you find that sweet spot, then you'll find that you're going to start hitting more consistently. You may not be hitting exactly what you're looking at every time, but your arrows will start to group better. The group will start tightening up. All right? Now, the second part of forgiving or forgiveness of one of these hill style bows is the length. Okay, you have to imagine, it's hard for me to get this in here, you have to imagine from this point all the way to this point, when that bow is drawn, okay, this being a 68-inch bow, it's a long ways from where I have this arrow knocked to the tip of that bow and to the bottom tip of the bow. Now, whether you're shooting 3 fingers under or you're shooting split finger, it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. I prefer to shoot split finger. That's just the way I like to shoot. Okay. But when you grip the string, okay, if you are putting more pressure on your index finger than you are on the other two fingers, or if you're putting more pressure on this bottom finger than you are the other two fingers, you're going to get erratic arrow flight. It may even kick the arrow and make it bounce off the side of the riser. Okay? So what you have to do, of course, you need your nock point reasonably close to where it's, it's going to fly flat and not kick up and down like this. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the pressure distributed it like it should be when you shoot this bow. So I can't tell you what pressure you need where for it to work for you. But if you have your grip where you're getting the center of that bow in the right pressure spot, when you draw the bow and you come back to anchor, okay, if this big finger, your middle finger here, is directly under the arrow and the other two are evenly dispersed, or maybe just a little bit more pressure on your ring finger, you're going to fairly quickly start realizing where the pressure needs to be on this string. Because what you're doing is, if you got extreme pressure on your index finger or extreme pressure on your bottom finger, you're literally changing the tiller of the bow. Okay? You're making the limbs pull uneven. There again, with forgiveness, this being 68 inches long, this tip, when it's drawn and it comes to right here, okay, it should be pulling evenly with the top. All right, but if you're not consistently pulling that string and applying the same pressure on here, you may have one shot where this is pulling a little bit further than the top limb or a little bit less. Okay, and all this all in the bow design. So forgiveness comes with this bow being 68 inches long. Instead of, if this bow was 62 inches long and it pulled the limb to here to be at full draw, this limb is actually only pulling to about right here somewhere. Okay, so you see the difference. If it's only pulling this far, then that's less likely that there's a lot less margin for error, is what I'm trying to say. I'm hoping I'm making sense here, but that, the longer the bow, okay, with a longer draw length, your tiller is less affected by a bad release or a bad grip. Okay, now if I took this same bow and it was 60 inches long and I pulled it to my draw length and I applied too much pressure with one of the other fingers, now you can start really messing with the tiller of that bow, and you never will get good arrow flight. I don't care what kind of arrows you have. Okay, now the way to alleviate that, some bowyers have gone to building these risers, these like 3-piece longbows and stuff like that, with the real forward handle, cut past center, and it looks like a recurve with some longbow-like limbs on it. Okay, what that does is that helps with alignment and everything else. I can tell you that this bow right here is the most simple bow to shoot, as long as you know how to approach these problems or these issues, again, with eliminating the variables. If you know how to approach this, if you know that your hand pressure can affect the way the bow shoots, all right, the way it feels when you shoot. If you know that altering your grip and pressure with your 3 fingers right here can alter the tiller of the bow and make it shoot badly. It'll do that with any bow. But these bows are, in my opinion, are less susceptible to that if you have the correct bow for you. You can take, I don't care who makes them, you can take any longbow off anywhere from any bowyer. If that bow is too short for your draw length, you start getting into what I call a nervous bow. It's real. It could get finicky. It gets where it's jerky, and you never know when it's going to go off, kind of deal. And also, it's even more susceptible to these little subtle changes in your grip. It doesn't, when you're hunting in a hunting situation, if there's an animal standing out there, like I said in some previous videos, you should have shot enough to where it's almost second nature. Okay, you've done this enough in your backyard. You've done this enough in targets and hay bales and 3D targets and stuff like that, where when the animal's standing there, you're not looking down trying to figure out, you know, where your hand is or anything else. It just kind of falls into place. And as long as you know these basics about this, these things will happen very quickly. Most people, if they don't take the time to understand these bows, which is not a big deal, it's really not. It's just they just skip over that part, and then they can't figure out why the bow don't shoot. And then all of a sudden you get all these comments, well, that's a piece of crap, and I don't shoot it, it's got hand shock, and I can't hit anything with it, or whatever. That's just unequivocally not true. These bows are simple to shoot, but you do have to spend the time to learn how to use it. It's a weapon to hunt with and to shoot just sharp targets with too, but it's a weapon, and you have to learn your weapon. Now, enough of that. On to smooth. Somebody says a bow is smooth. That's subjective, as far as I'm concerned. Different bowyers design their bows different ways with their limbs, length of the riser, you know, different materials and things like that. What I mean by the limbs, the laminations that are in these limbs are tapered specifically from the center of the handle out to the end of the limb. Some of them taper them different ways, some of them tiller them different ways and things like that. But the end result is a smooth bow is whenever you start your draw, okay, and you feel a gradual but steady increase all the way back to your anchor point. Okay, there's no gets right here and then it gets really hard to pull back, or it's real soft all the way back to here. You know, you have to, first of all, you need to learn how to shoot the bow to understand what soft is. But you know, through the draw stroke of the bow, if you have a smooth, what they call the power stroke of the bow, when you're pulling it, the power stroke, the weight should go up and back evenly. Okay, if the weight goes up high and you're only this far back in your draw, then the power stroke is not smooth. If it just gradually comes up and back till you get all the way to your draw length, that's what I would consider a smooth bow. Generally speaking, the average guy that hasn't shot one of these bows for any length of time, or shot different models from different builders, may or may not be able to detect that. I mean, you may or may not be able to feel the difference in one bow to the next. Not everybody has 4, 5, 10, 20 bows. Some people only have one bow. That's the one they shoot. And if they shoot it well, that's all they need. Okay? But I will tell you that some bows, you hear sometimes it shoots like butter. Well, it might, but that's because it's the draw stroke of the bow and the design of the limbs lets the draw weight come up evenly with the draw length. That's pretty much what a smooth bow is. Forgiving. Again, forgiving. Let's see. I think I covered that already. Forgiving and smooth and stable. Stable was the last one. The stability of the bow is really, these bows are extremely stable if they're gripped properly, and if they're drawn properly, and if they're shot properly. A beginner that doesn't have experience with one of these and has never actually felt the center spot in this handle, wherever it's at, if they haven't actually felt that before, they may shoot for a very long time and their hand position is in the wrong place, and it never feels exactly right to them. And then one Saturday, all of a sudden they're out there and they move their hand to a different spot for some reason or whatever, and they draw the bow, and it's just magic. They found the spot. And so stability is built into these bows. Uh, you just have to find it. Okay. Again, it's very unlikely. The percentages of people that can walk in and buy a bow off the shelf and buy some arrows off the shelf and go out and hit the target every single time at 20 yards, never done it before in their life, go out and do that. There are people that can do that kind of thing. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I am not one of those kind of people. I have to work at my equipment, work with my equipment, work with my arrows and stuff like that to make sure that my equipment functions like I need it to whenever I'm using it in the woods. Sometimes it just comes to you. I've had bad days where I've walked out there and tried to shoot the target and I can't get a group for one reason or another. My mind's somewhere else. I'm thinking about work or whatever. And then all of a sudden, I go put the bow down and go inside for a few minutes and come back out, and then the next three arrows are all touching each other, at 20 yards or 25 yards or something. You have to spend the time to understand your bow, understand your equipment, and I can almost guarantee you that if you do that, you take the time, you take the advice, and listen to people that are trying to help you. Again, absorb it and digest it and take out the little pieces that are helping you and use that. There's a lot of background noise. There's always a lot of internet experts with their opinions about what you ought to be doing. If you listen, these guys will talk to you. If you ask them questions, especially if you're a customer of theirs, most of the time they will. Ask them about string, finger pressure on the string, and finger pressure on the handle and things like that, and ask them about these things that I'm talking about. And generally speaking, and I'm hoping that I'm right about this, most of these bowyers would say, yeah, man, you need to try a couple of different things here or there, and it might help you shoot better, make you enjoy your bow better, or whatever. So again, forgiving, stable, and these other things, they're not automatic. Okay, this is not a plug and play sport. This is not a you have to spend some time and learn your equipment. There's some guys out there that are incredible shots. I mean, they do things with these long bows that some of us can only imagine doing. And there's other guys, hunters like myself. I'm not much of a target shooter. I mean, I find myself shooting at dandelions and stuff like that out in a pasture more than I do really at a 3D target. So most of the time, if I'm just shooting at a target, I'm just checking to make sure that my knock point is pretty close. Okay, and the rest of the time I spend with some hex head blunts or something like that out shooting at ant beds and whatever else I can see out in the distance. That's kind of the way I practice. Now I will shoot it at a bale and make sure my arrows are grouping out 10 or 15 yards or something before I go out and go hunting. I'll shoot a few arrows just to make sure I'm stretched and I don't have any pain anywhere or anything like that. I'll shoot a few arrows. I don't like to spend hours and hours and hours shooting at a hay bale, which I have done that, but I don't like to do that. I like to shoot at kind of real life targets, a flower or a dirt mound or something like that that's off in the distance or whatever. That helps me, as long as my arrows are flying right, my bow's tuned up, that's kind of the way I practice. But to each his own. A lot of people don't have room to do that stuff. All they have is their backyard, and hay bale's just fine, or 3D target's just fine. That's where you need to practice. But remember that hand pressure, pressure on the string with your fingers, all these things will affect the performance of the bow. Yes, these bows are very forgiving. Yes, they are very stable bows, and yes, they are efficient bows. But you have to take these things into consideration. It's just not automatic. Okay. I don't want to give anybody false expectations that this bow, you just pick it up and it's magic and everything works. Hopefully, if it does for you, that's great. But it would seem kind of boring to me. You learn more by trial and error, basically, is the way I look at it. So anyway, That's kind of my take on a forgiving, stable bow. Uh, and if you guys have any questions or comments about this video, I'll be glad. I'll try to, most of the comments I get, I might just hit the like or something on it. But I do read these comments, and I'm also getting some more subscribers. So you guys keep tuning in, and I'll keep trying to build some videos, make these videos for you guys, and hopefully one of these days we might run into each other in the woods somewhere. So anyway, if any way I can help you, just leave me a comment down below, and I'll try to address it for you. If I can't address it for you, or if I don't know the answer to it, I probably know somebody that does. So take that for what it's worth. But anyway, thanks guys, and I hope you enjoyed this video.